Your haters want you to be loud, so they can call you attention-seeking. They want you reactive, so they can call you unstable. But you gave them nothing, and still, you became everything they feared you might. Your name echoes in rooms you've never entered. They speak of you when you're not around, not in soft whispers, but with weight, with reverence, with the kind of tone reserved for stories that sharpen the spine. And what stings your haters most isn't your presence. It's your absence. It's that you don't need to campaign, to perform, to prove. Your reputation walks ahead of you like a shadow with posture. And they can't stand that. Because while they scheme in corners, hoping to dim your light, others are already speaking your name like a compass. While they dig pits, strangers are building pedestals out of the same dirt. That's what destroys them. Not that you win, but that you don't even need to fight to be respected. When people speak highly of you, it destabilizes your critics because they've invested so much energy into crafting a version of you that was easy to dismiss. The jealous need their targets to be small, digestible, flawed in obvious ways. But when your name starts to rise, unassisted, unforced, it threatens their narrative. They say you're too much, yet people want more of you. They say you're arrogant, yet people find humility in your wisdom. They say you're cold, yet somehow your presence brings warmth to every room you touch. Their contradictions are catching up with them. Their fabrications are failing under the weight of your reality, and they hate that you don't even acknowledge the chaos. You just keep rising. They can't process how your name is met with nods, with smiles, with trust. That's the currency they can't counterfeit: earned credibility. Because reputation is built in the shadows, in the way you handled betrayal without spectacle, in how you carried other people's secrets without leaking, in the way you stood tall, even when your knees buckled beneath the weight of everything they threw at you. Your reputation isn't just reputation. It's reputation with receipts, and that terrifies the insecure because their stories about you crumble when held next to your character. You were silent when you could have screamed. You were composed when you had every right to burn it all down, and now that silence has matured into myth. You never asked to be admired. You just chose not to self-destruct. You chose depth when others chased image. You chose consistency while they mastered performance. And now people notice. They admire how you move with intent, with grace, with a sharpness that never seeks applause but earns it anyway. You don't over-explain. You don't campaign for attention. You just exist. And that existence violates the comfort of those who thought they could bury you in opinion. Your haters want you to be loud so they can call you attention-seeking. They want you reactive so they can call you unstable. But you gave them nothing, and still, you became everything they feared you might. Here's the psychology behind their suffering. Your reputation means their narrative failed. Their campaign against you had a deadline, and the world never showed up for the smear job. They told people to watch you, to expect the fall, but the fall never came. The glow up did, and now those same people are quoting your words, seeking your advice, aligning with your vision. Your critics are left with mouths full of dust. Their accusations now feel like projections. Their criticisms sound more like confessions, because the truth always leaks. And yours spilled into the minds of people they were counting on to hate you. It's hard to keep up a lie when the subject of it keeps showing up healed. You never needed to destroy them. You simply outlasted them. That's the real sting. You didn't throw dirt. You grew out of it. You didn't retaliate. You reinvented. You didn't expose them. You elevated, and in doing so, left them gasping for relevance. You became the kind of story that writes itself. The kind of person whose absence feels like a statement, and whose presence rearranges the emotional temperature of a room. They wanted you to play the villain, but you played the architect. You rebuilt yourself, and now their issue isn't just with you. It's with the echo of you. With the way your name makes people sit up straighter. You became an emblem, not because you wanted to, but because you earned it. Every tear you refused to turn into theater, every boundary you drew in silence, every betrayal you walked away from without dragging anyone through the mud. That's what built your name, and people remember that. Not the theatrics of your critics, but the precision of your movement. You walked with pain, but never passed it on. You suffered, but never sharpened your wounds into weapons. And that kind of strength is unforgettable. With Haunts the Insecure, because you proved that reputation doesn't come from image. It comes from integrity under pressure. They tried to drown your name. Now they hear it spoken like prophecy. They can't escape it. Not in meetings. Not in social circles. Not in casual conversation. Your name is tethered to resilience, to insight, to something earned. And they choke on the truth that no one asks for their opinion anymore. People don't inquire about your scandals. They ask how you stayed so composed, how you kept building, how you managed to remain generous while being dissected. That question alone is their undoing. Because there's no lie that can compete with consistent grace under fire. They talk about you now. Not because you demanded it. Not because you lobbied for attention. But because your name entered rooms you never did. It arrived before you did. It spoke when you stayed silent. And what unsettles them most is that they cannot trace the origin of your reputation. It wasn't manufactured. It wasn't built through associations or appearances. It was carved in silence, away from cameras and witnesses, in the shadows where most people crumble. You built your reputation in solitude, brick by brutal brick. And that's why they can't destroy it. Noise can discredit a reputation built in vanity. But solitude leaves no handprints behind, no collaborators to flip, no marketing campaign to expose. What you built is immune to slander, because it was never fed by applause. While they broadcasted their achievements, you refined your discipline in the dark. While they traded validation like currency, you invested in self-respect. And now your value is untouchable. They can scream. They can accuse. They can twist and perform and gather witnesses. But your reputation is built on what you endured in silence. It's not just impressive. It's undeniable. Because when people ask about you, they're not reciting headlines. They're referencing consistency. They're speaking about the storm you outlasted, the war you walked through without losing your voice. That's why your reputation hits harder, because it's not borrowed, it's not co-signed, it was bled for. And no volume of gossip can overpower something that was built in isolation with nothing but grit and clarity. People forget that the strongest reputations don't rise during celebration. They rise in seasons of isolation, when nobody's watching. When your back is against the wall and the silence is so loud it feels like another enemy. That's where you built it. In the empty rooms where your only audience was the voice in your head saying, "Get up again." And you did. Every time. Not for admiration. Not for optics. But because you refused to die in their version of you. You refused to let the lie live longer than your legacy. And so you rose day after day, sharpening your name like a blade. You built a presence so rooted in solitude that now, when they try to smear it, they end up choking on their own echo. You didn't need their stage. You built your own floor, designed your own spotlight, and spoke to no one until the work was done. That's the part they can't compete with. Reputation built in noise can be stolen, borrowed, inflated. But reputation built in solitude is bulletproof. Because it has no witnesses to betray you. No allies to distance themselves when the weather changes. Your story was written alone. And now, when people quote it, they're quoting something real. Not a projection, not a PR stunt. And your enemies, they can't unwrite it. They can only scream louder, hoping someone will mistake volume for truth. You didn't grow in visibility. You grew in voids, in the quiet heartbreaks that never made it to conversation, in the betrayals you never avenged, in the patience you practiced while being provoked. And every time you didn't react, you built another layer of credibility. That's what they don't understand, that your reputation was a long game, not an accident, not a fluke, but a result of brutal self-refinement. They thought you vanished, that you disappeared because you weren't clapping back. But you weren't disappearing, you were becoming. And now that you've returned, your name enters the room with more weight than their entire resume. They want to discredit you with anecdotes, isolated half-truths, disconnected moments of your past they think still hold power. But your reputation no longer lives in those fragments. It lives in the sum of what you've become, in how you carry yourself, in the respect you command without asking, in the way others speak about you with certainty. You didn't just survive the noise, you evolved it. And now that people see your depth, the shallow accusations float like dust. They can't weaponize your silence anymore. It has already become your legacy. They're scrambling now, whispering louder, searching for cracks in something forged under pressure they could never endure. But you're no longer concerned with their tone. You know who you are, and more importantly, so does everyone else. You didn't build a reputation. You became one.